What does Christian Zionism, dispensationalism, Christian nationalism, the NAR movement, the charismatic movement, Pentecostalism, Judaism, Islam, the occult, the Vatican, the image of the beast, the mark of the beast, and the coming New World Order religion that will worship Satan all have in common? Today you're going to find out. Welcome to the Great Delusion. Welcome to the show, everybody. My name is Tudor Alexander, and this is the Dance of Life podcast. A couple weeks ago, I released an episode titled Timeline to the End. Very important episode. In that particular episode, I said it was probably going to be one of the most important episodes that I would ever produce. And I still stand by those words. That is an extremely important episode, very important set of events described there, so make sure that you go and check it out. However, today is very much the same thing. I didn't think that I would create such an equally important episode so soon, but of course we never know what God has in store for our lives. And so today I want to share with you an extremely important episode. Really, I don't even call it an episode. It's going to be like a mini series, and I will post this in parts, but nonetheless, today is a very important message. That's a better word. This is a message. It's a message for you to wake up, and I'm sure many of you are already woken up to many things, but you need to see how it's all coming together. We are in the generation of the Lord's return, and it is a phenomenal thing to be alive, to witness His word coming true. And today my goal is to show you that, because we're going to talk about something that I haven't personally seen anybody integrate. I've been talking about a lot of these things, but recently they all kind of just came together. They really do, and they all come together in this thing that is coming up on the horizon, which is the third temple. So this is what we're talking about today. It's an extremely important episode because it shows you how all of the things that I listed at the intro, of course, my intro was supposed to be a little comical too, but it's true. All the things that I listed off, a dozen or so things, they're all connected. They're all connected in this great delusion that's coming, and it's going to deceive many people. So I hope that you aren't one of them. I hope that people in your close circle and your family aren't one of them either, because today we're going to expand on this issue in very great depth. If you have watched any of my stuff, you know where all the roads lead to. They all lead to Rome. And the Bible warns that the beast will be worshipped at the end of time, that people will marvel after the beast. And of course, that means what? That means a Christian nationalist system. Now, if that is completely news to you, then I really suggest that you watch my End Time series. I suggest that you check out my playlist on Christian nationalism. But if you do know that all roads lead to Rome, you will learn how incredibly true that really is today. Even for people who I would say are seasoned, quote unquote conspiracy theorists, or, you're seasoned in that whole side of things, you know about many of these things. You will be delighted, I hope, to see how all of these things truly come together. It's profound. That's all I can tell you. It is profound, and I'm grateful to God for showing me all of this in the perfect timing, as usual. It's really quite profound. But before we move on, make sure you subscribe and you hit that like button if you want to grow big ears like one of those cute little Fennec foxes, because you will definitely need them for what is coming, my friends. When God wrote through Paul that he would send them great delusion, he wasn't kidding. And you'll see exactly what I mean. So you will need huge ears. You will need huge ears to be able to discern what is true and right in the coming months and years, because what is coming is extremely deceptive. And my goal is to warn you about it ahead of time. That's my goal. So what motivated me to do this particular message? Well, I've talked about Christian nationalism and the coming false light system, the Jesuits' involvement in all these different things, how people are coming back to the Catholic Church, Protestant infiltrations. I've talked about these things quite a bit. I've also talked about dispensationalism, how it's a false doctrine, how Christian Zionism is just crazy. I've covered a lot of that stuff, but the big question for me was, how are they going to do it? How are they going to bring all these things together? How are they going to bring the Jews in ultimately? That's a big question. How are they going to integrate the Muslims? It was all something that I was really not sure yet, to be honest. And ultimately, this will be a thing that I will repeat over and over again. We have to remember that prophecy becomes more obvious the closer it gets to being fulfilled. And an easy example is Daniel 9, where when Daniel receives a vision in Daniel 8 of the 2300 evenings and mornings. And then in Daniel 9, he realizes, oh man, like Jeremiah's prophecy for Babylon is over. Like it's coming up here. I need to pray and get discernment because something needs to change. And this is the same situation with us. A lot of these things will become increasingly more obvious. And you'll know what I mean by that as time progresses forward, because there are still some variables at the time of this video that are unknown. And I think that that's just an honest observation. Ultimately, you'll see quite a bit today. You'll understand quite a bit. That's my goal. But there are still some unknowns, and that's why my goal is to give this to you ahead of time so that you can grow those Fennec fox ears and listen and understand what to listen for and see where this is going, because this is a dynamically evolving situation. We're living in the generation of the Lord's words, coming to pass. And so we have to develop a relationship with His word and with unfolding history to really, keep our thumbs on the pulse, so to speak. But I always wondered how they're going to integrate these things. And I talked about a little bit in my Timeline to the End episode when we talked about the third temple, how ultimately they're committed to building this thing. They must do this because they committed to a false prophecy 500 years ago and inverted the truth. And so they have really committed to building this third temple. The question is, how far are they going to go? Nevertheless, the third temple dialectic unifies a lot of threads together. It unifies Christian Zionism and dispensationalism with Christian nationalism, the charismatic movement, Zionism and the Jews, Islam. All these things are going to be integrated with this coming Great Delusion, really. And the Great Delusion is not just the third temple. The third temple is part of the Great Delusion. But the Great Delusion is coming, and the third temple is the thing that wraps it all together very nice and neat, and you'll see exactly what I mean. So, how is this going to happen? Well, basically, the Jews expect the Messiah to come during a time of conflict, i.e. right now with this whole Middle East conflict, which is obviously created. I mean, we all know the truth behind October 7th. We all know all this dialectic with Iran recently and everything else. It's obvious that they're just stirring the pot on purpose. Why? Because for the Jews to bring their Messiah, it has to come during a time of conflict. So this is all going to time very nicely for them. Now, the Muslims believe their Antichrist, the Dajjal, is going to be the Jewish Messiah. So that's an interesting relationship. The Muslims also believe that Jesus is going to return with the Mahdi to destroy the Dajjal, or the Jewish false Antichrist, Messiah for them. Antichrist for everybody else, but for the Jews, it'll be the Messiah. The Christian Zionists and the dispensationalists believe the temple is necessary to fulfill the prophecy, right? The false prophecy of dispensationalism to bring Jesus. And charismatics believe that there needs to be a revival, and specifically the NAR, about the Jews in order to bring the return of Christ, because a lot of them are Christian nationalists also, and they're tied up with this whole NAR thing. If all this stuff is like, you're like, oh my gosh, there's so much information, just wait. We're going to make sense of it. I'm just giving you the big picture, because we're going to go thread by thread, I promise. But the big picture is how all of these things are coming together. Many Christian Zionists also believe there has to be a revival in Israel specifically. And a lot of Christian nationalists are post-millennial, meaning things need to get better and then Jesus will show up. Christians, Jews, and Muslims all have a belief in a future golden age type of millennial kingdom. And of course, amidst all of that context, the Bible warns you that the world will marvel after the beast, that will worship the beast, that will take its mark, that the false prophet will export the image of the beast to the rest of the world. So you have a Christian, nationalist, false Christian religion that's going to rule at the end of time, amidst all of the things I just mentioned to you. So if you put it all, do you see what I see is the point? Do you see where this is going? How all threads are going to be integrated back to Mystery Babylon. Once they start building the third temple, it's going to be extremely difficult to rescue anybody. Of course, we're not doing the rescuing. It's Christ that's doing the rescuing. And there are elect that need to be sealed up until, before the first bowl judgment that's going to drop after the mark starts becoming enforced. And I talk about that in my Timeline to the End series. But nonetheless, it's going to be very difficult to rescue people from dispensationalism. And it's not even dispensationalism anymore. It's going to be this new thing, and you'll see what I mean by that. It is so profound. It's so profound. But when they build the third temple, it's going to light the Arab world on fire. The Jews have this guy named Rav Shlomo Yehuda, who, all the watchmen and watchwomen in the dispensational crowd are all about. He's like the false Messiah. He's the Jewish Messiah. Of course, he's a prodigy. He's like 30-something, charming little fellow. Not very much online. I mean, he is kind of, but they've hidden him. But people are frothing at the mouth for this guy. He's doing miracles. He's got all the books memorized. I mean, he's definitely the best candidate, and he's right at the right time too. But let's say the Jews have their Messiah. They declare their Messiah. The Muslims declare a holy war. Jesus, quote unquote, Jesus, appears and destroys this false Yanuka guy. That leads to some supernatural situations. The Muslims convert. They realize that Jesus is actually the Mahdi because they were expecting him to return anyway. The Jews have a charismatic revival. Christian Zionists join Christian nationalists into one world system. And all the pagan religions, they're going to be easy to convert because they're very easily swayed by supernatural circumstances. And of course, there's other things going on too. We'll talk more about this, but look, this is very possible. At the very minimum, the third temple is going to be some sort of dialectic that will bring about a world peace situation, which will set the stage for a charismatic revival and conversion of the Jews and Muslims. And of course, if that sounds crazy to you, then please do entertain me. I intend to prove it to you, because today you're going to see how all these threads are related. You will truly see how all of these threads, as crazy and set apart as they seem, all come to Rome. We're going to prove that dispensationalism has its roots in the Jesuits and Freemasonry and the occult. I'm going to prove to you that there's a connection between the charismatic movement and Christian Zionism. We're going to prove that Pentecostalism was created by a counterfeit spirit of the devil. We're going to prove that the charismatic movement is being used by the beast and has a very important role in all of this. We're going to prove that Zionism is also being used by the beast to unite the world. And we're going to prove that Islam is going to be, it's actually being prepared for a mass conversion. And again, if this stuff sounds crazy to you, then please entertain me, because this is going to be an epic adventure through history. It will be absolutely epic, I promise you. You will come out hopefully very edified and empowered with the truth. And my goal is for this to be a resource for you so that you can help your friends and people around you. I also hope that you're going to glorify God as the revealer of mysteries and as sovereign over time and space. That you will marvel, not at me or not at the information I'm presenting to you, but marvel at the plan of God. That we are living in the time of His Word becoming fulfilled. What a gift. Regardless of all this horrible stuff that I'm going to share with you, regardless of the fact that this seems hopeless, of course it's going to happen. God has decreed it to happen. And you get to see it happen, which proves that God is sovereign over all things, which is such an amazing thing to witness, regardless of the craziness that's coming. So I hope that you will give glory to God for that, and it will help you marvel at His Word, because we are living in that generation. Now, I haven't seen anyone, like I said, integrate all the things that I'm discussing with you today. So the point is that you're going to be ahead of the curve. And you'll be able to watch for things and share with others and help them hopefully get ahead of the curve as well. So use the timestamps If you're going to watch this full, I'm going to put the timestamps, obviously, like I do for everything. I'm also going to upload this in parts, so that it's kind of like a mini series that you can watch in separate videos if you want to do that, and also helpfully be able to share with people that need to learn these things. I'm also at the end of this going to create a summary section, an epilogue, which will be all the highlights basically from each part, and so on. So again, once the temple is going to be built, it's going to be very difficult to rescue people. And of course, it doesn't mean that people won't be rescued, but it's going to be even more conflict. Like the things that you're frustrated about now, I think I had a poll a couple weeks ago about which one's harder to talk to, dispensationalists, Christian nationalists, Catholics, or whatever else. Whatever you felt in that poll, if you voted, multiply that by like 100 once this thing comes through, and you'll know what I mean. But this is the Great Delusion. It's the connection between 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 and Revelation 13, where in Revelation 13, the beast recovers spiritually from his wound. Of course, the beast recovered in 1929 physically, politically, I should say, not physically, because whatever, beast is a system, but politically it recovered in 1929 when the Pope signed the Lateran Pact and got his papal territories back, the Vatican was formed, whatever. But spiritually, the wound was still healing. And when the wound heals spiritually, the world will marvel after the beast. Now, we know from 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 9 through 11, that says, the coming of the lawless one is by the activity of Satan, with all power and false signs and wonders, and with all wicked deception for those who are perishing because they refuse to love the truth and so be saved. Therefore, God sends them a strong delusion so that they may believe what is false, in order that they may all be condemned who did not believe the truth, but had pleasure in unrighteousness. So it's God who decreed these things, folks. You have to understand God is sovereign over all things. And if God has decreed there to be a great delusion for people to be deceived, then they will be deceived. There's no stopping it. However, there are elect to be sealed. And we know even just from this couple verses that the people who are going to be deceived aren't the elect. They are people who did not love the truth, i.e. the reprobate, the people who God passed over and did not grant supernatural awareness to see the truth. And again, we don't know who the elect are. That's why I do what I do. But we got to get the information out because time is running short. And we want to participate in God's plan to wake up the elect. But look, this great delusion in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, the man of lawlessness is the first beast, which is the papal institution. I have a whole episode on that. Go check it out. When it says a man of lawlessness, it doesn't mean a singular individual. It means an institution of men. Just like when Paul says that the man of God may be complete. When he's talking to Timothy about, things that the men of God do. Well, the man of God in that sentence is not an individual in the future. It's an institution of people, i.e. people who are preparing themselves through Scripture, who are teaching, who are helping, who are pastoring, the man of God. Well, the man of lawlessness is an institution of men. It's a succession of men. And that represents, or I should say that is equivalent to the first beast from the sea, which is this papal institution. Now, we know that the Revelation 13, that the papal institution, the people will marvel after this power. That's the end times, that the people will marvel after the beast. Well, the marveling after the beast is the Great Delusion. It is also the Christian nationalist system that's coming. It is the kings of the earth giving their power to Mystery Babylon, which is the Catholic Church. It is people taking the mark of the beast and obeying the system. It's all of those things. It is this coming thing. And so the Great Delusion is on the horizon, folks. It is on the horizon because the wound is about to be healed. So, with that said, let's jump into it. The first stop is current events.